the state of freedom of expression in the country is pathetic. It's non-existent almost. The divide that's created in India is basically because of people like Arnab, uh, who's has such a large voice in the country. Indian content should not be based on the Salman Khan films you see in Bollywood. It should be based on, say, Scam 1992. The whole point is, you can't control the internet. uh, you can't, because it's such a vast and vague landscape. What would you consider news? Is a meme considered news? Is a TikTok considered news? I didn't have many life experiences that could widely relate to everyone else. So what I've been trying to do over the last few years is listen to other people.
So
Yeah.
first of all, thank you for saying yes. Thank you for being part of Stories You Should Know. And if I may introduce you, I would say we have a man of many words. He is someone who's making the right kind of noise on internet, inspiring a lot of young minds. So thank you so much, Andre, for saying yes and being here. I'm going to ask you a very common question, but a very important one. How has the lockdown been for you?
Thanks for having me. I'm pretty good. I think lockdown for me, and I've been taking the lockdown fairly seriously. I mean, I haven't been out of my house in almost 8 months, save for a couple of trips, to my dad's house. I made 2 trips there, 3 trips there, because my dog also lives with my dad and my sister. So I went to meet my dog for his birthday, and I took him to the vet a couple of times in between. But that's about the extent of me getting out of the house. Um, Lockdown has been actually pretty good for me. Like you said earlier, we're pretty lucky that our life hasn't changed so much, and our jobs allowed for us to very easily transition into being stuck at home. So yeah, work's been pretty good. I'm actually able to get more work done because the time is basically my own. So um, I'm not really working the traditional 9 to 5 anymore. I'm working whenever,
But
whichever
I
time is
feel the
convenient.
work has expanded. Like I personally feel that I'm working more than I had to ever work before, because any free time I get, I'm working. So is it the same for you?
So similar. I mean, the only difference is I was doing this before the lockdown also, but for me it cuts out almost 3 hours of travel time. Um, so that time, more than the time, it's the energy that I'm able to save because of that. So it's allowed me to put in my energy uh, in other ways basically. So I'm consuming more content, whether it be the general Netflix stuff, or content that will expand my horizons in terms of learning stuff, documentaries and stuff. And I've been able to do more things. I'm working out more, I'm cooking more, able to clean the house, learn a couple of new skills. So yeah, the lockdown's been quite enriching. I it sucks to say, but like I think that it's been decent for me, even though it's been like pretty horrible for
A lot of people,
most people.
yes. Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. I want to go a little back at the time when you were in college and, when you were doing your master's in English
Yeah.
literature. At that
Yeah.
time, did you ever feel, or were the dreams or the aspirations you had at the time, have they stayed like the same till now, or that time you wanted to be someone else when you took up English literature and you were like, okay, I want to be a reporter, I want to do this?
Um, yes and no. I mean, yes, I did. So when I was in college, I so one thing I've always known since high school was I always wanted to write. I wanted to be in an industry that allowed me to, put pen to paper, um, figuratively speaking, obviously. But when I did my masters in English literature, it was always to go into journalism. I worked with a mainstream news organization for a few years, and it, I guess, like, news and the entertainment and the writing industry evolves with time. So back then, uh, the obsolete version of the news was print, which was newspapers and stuff. And being able to write articles and stuff on the internet was like the latest way and the most advanced way of like spreading across the news. When I joined BuzzFeed, I also joined as a writer. And video production I've been doing for, I would say, like a few years now, 2, 3 years maybe. Um, and I don't know, I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to possibly write a novel. I wanted to kind of go to other countries, and at one point I wanted to do war reporting, where I would uh, join the UN or something and work in Syria or Afghanistan or something like that. And yeah, I mean, my perspective has changed. I don't specifically want to do that uh, in its entirety anymore. uh, I think for, back then and now, my grounding in this industry will always be writing and being a part of the news ecosystem, just being able to spread awareness and information um, to whoever I can, whether it be on my platform or whether it be through an organization. Um, so yeah, I think it's a yes and no. Writing has always been the constant. I don't think I would be engaged or satisfied if I wasn't writing.
Also, the definition of journalism is very different for a lot of people. And
Right.
since the time we start studying it till the time we start implementing it, and as you said, it changes over the period of time.
Yeah.
And maybe when you started studying it, that time social media and internet wasn't
Right.
such a big thing. It was something that was emerging, and no one knew that it will take over everything. you know like in 2020, it's just like everything is happening over internet. No one knew it
Yeah.
maybe 10 years back then. So no one studies it
Yeah.
that way. No one thinks journalism can affect someone. So
Yeah.
from what I have seen you doing and your kind of work, it's always been very grounded on ground level, that okay, fine, I'm putting out a very fun content, but on the other hand, I do want to put out a very informative or a educational purpose kind of content. That has been very selective from your side, that that's something that you thought ki, okay, I'm going to do it on this kind of a platform. I want people to know such information.
Yeah. So I think journalism is very much the same as, let's say, medicine, right? Like, by the time you're out of med school, whatever you learned is obsolete, because same the last, I would say, 50 years, everything is expanding in such a rate. Like, everything's developing so quickly that the schools themselves are obsolete to kind of teach you. I was lucky enough to have grown up um, knowing a world without the internet and a world immersed in the internet, more so than most people. So my theory, so when I did my masters, I also wanted to do another course um, in New York, and go there and kind of study the intricacies of probably a more specific kind of journalism. um, I realized I don't need that anymore, because whatever you learn in these schools and stuff like that, while it's very, very vital and great information as a base, once you're in the field, it's a very different ball game. So yeah, I think my content. So I try to keep a divider of what I'm doing as a job, versus what I am as a as a private citizen who's trying to do. Uh, I wouldn't call it journalism. Also, I would call it just information, spreading awareness and stuff like that through my social media handles, because um, I don't think there's a uh, organization out there. I think Dialogue, which was something I did with BuzzFeed, would have been the best amalgamation of both worlds. Um, but yeah, my area of expertise in terms of work skill is more towards nonfiction and narrative storytelling on the internet. So sometimes that most companies are a little skittish when you kind of add news to it, where you try to add current affairs to it. So there is a little bit of a duality of like who I am as a person on the internet. um, but yeah, I try to use the skills of both to kind of weave as much narrative as I can in both areas. Um, yeah, but I mean, when I started journalism, not even learned journalism, but when I started reporting in the field, it's extremely different from what it is today.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone from my batch would be able to say that nothing has changed from them, that they didn't have to adapt, they didn't have to learn new ways to communicate stories. um, and I think that's a good and a bad thing. I think that it's a really good thing that information is now reaching people that it would not have 10 years ago. But with the good always comes the bad, which is the disinformation also,
Exactly. I was
reaches the
about to
same
say a
audience
lot of
people.
half information, misinformation, fake news. There are so many things that's revolving around.
Yeah.
And when you talk about your social media, we all know that how big of an impact it's making. Okay, people are actually waiting for you to write something on a certain topic, and And not just because you are writing something, it's something that people are associating because they think, okay, this is exactly what we are thinking and he's writing, so let's just share it a little bit more. That pressure comes in from because you just start with putting your opinion out there, and then
Yeah.
it start building up into something and people are expecting you to speak about it. That kind of affects the way that you look at things, and then you know how
Right.
difference does it make?
So, I mean, I'll be really frank. So, when I started doing this, I still don't expect it to be like something that, you know, changes the minds of people or influences a large number of people. Although it seems to have turned into that, it seems to have trickled into a place where I do have a large following on social media, and there are certain expectations in terms of what I do talk about, what I don't talk about, how I phrase things and stuff like that. And I won't lie, it does kind of feed into um, sometimes how I would phrase things. Um, but that's mostly because of the kind of negative feedback that you get from trying to point out things that mainstream news organizations aren't. And it's not just me. I see it in almost every colleague or counterpart of what I do on the internet. More so with people who come from marginalized classes or from marginalized groups, basically, or women who try to do this, because the amount of hate is not necessarily about what you're speaking about. It's always tangentially related. It talks about you as a person, and things that you may or may not have spoken about in the past. um, so yeah, I think there is this kind of restraint that comes sometimes, or maybe not restraint, but maybe just overthinking about how to say something or what to say and stuff like that. I personally don't think it's healthy. I think that it defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do out there, which is trying to be as open, and trying to be as transparent about um, what we're trying to say by
Yeah.
our posts
Also,
or stories. Yeah.
because you address a lot of mainstream topics and also some topics which are very controversial,
Yeah.
political, and so over there, because this is my personal view that right now in our country
Yeah.
the freedom of expression and speech is being very systematically destroyed one by one. People, I mean,
Yeah.
if you say something right now on social media, people are actually put up behind bars for that. They are having cases
Yeah.
on them, and there's so much political pressure. You ever feel that happening with you? Ever getting that kind of a pressure, maybe from friends or family or someone around you, that you know what, listen, you shouldn't do this because it's going to get you into trouble? You have that kind of pressure going on?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, family though, for sure. My dad is concerned here and there. Although he doesn't, I don't think he has the complete scope of what all I do on social media. But he once in a while get a forward or something like that. Um, Friends for sure have told me, a couple of my best friends have kind of asked me like, okay, now to just calm down a little bit, or take thoda sa break, or like relax for a while and stuff like that. And I myself also have felt it sometimes. I'll put out something and I'll get a wide amount of um, I don't know, backlash or opposing opinions or whatever you want to call it. But see, that's the problem. Like, I want the internet to be a free space for debate. I want opposing opinions to come in. I want to have a civil discussion online. But it's never that. It's never a discussion in the comments. It's always abuses, slurs, threats of violence, or legal action or whatever it is. And you're absolutely right. The state of freedom of expression in the country is pathetic. It's non-existent almost. And I don't think I'm a big enough fish to worry about cases or legal battles or being thrown in jail and stuff like that. But I would say at some point everyone should, because like at some point someone or the other will
Yeah,
be offended by something.
I mean, it's not just about being the bigger fish, you know. Like, I have my political
Yeah.
views, I have my opinions, and I put it out, and then I get a call from my
Yeah.
mother, or I get a call from a friend or something. They're like, "What have you written? You know, why have you done this?" And so these kind of things happen. And then again, you are working, and this is your personal life. So this kind of have you ever got that kind of pressure from, let's say, your workspace, that okay, you know what,
Yeah.
because of what you are saying in your personal life, what you're doing in your personal life, it's affecting our work or our brand directly? Has it happened?
No, I've actually been very lucky to work for uh, companies um, who have a very strong understanding of what is right and wrong, and I think that it's their belief that what I'm doing isn't wrong, and I've never faced anything like that from any company. So I do work with brands sometimes, for paid partnerships and stuff like that. But and I faced that from them, where brands have pulled out because of of how political I am on social media. In fact, it's actually quite ridiculous, because a lot of people think that I make a lot of money from social media, but because I'm so political, I have lost a lot of money, because I've lost a lot of brand deals, um, because they don't want to associate with people who are um, politically vocal, or not even politically vocal, just vocal against who they assume are their
Yeah,
political masters,
of
which is
course. I mean,
basically the
even if they kind of want to be associated, then they have the different kind of pressures going on their head, and there are different things going on.
yeah,
Since
yeah.
you're so much into content creation, and I want to talk about a very, very latest information that was out yesterday about the OTT platforms coming under IND ministry.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
would really like to know your opinion on it. I mean, I have read about it on your Instagram and what you think about it, but in a little bit of detail, because you are a person from who create content, right? Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, Netflix and Amazon Prime, Hotstar, these are all very different ball games. But yes, now the content is going to be affected very, very drastically.
Right.
What
So
are
I mean,
your views?
there are multiple points to focus on. So one, I think it's an absolutely ridiculous idea in general. It creates censorship, and it creates so the regulations that will happen. So this is something that's been going on for a while. I've been part of committees that have been talking, and part of committees that involve uh, big players from almost all the OTTs, from news publications, from TV actors, from web series actors, policy analysts, content creators. They've been multiple. So we knew this was coming. The only issue is like it's very vague. So what is the definition of uh, content creation? What is the definition of news? So for instance, if I'm on YouTube and I'm talking about news, would that be counted as news? What is the there are they're leaving loopholes to be able to hold anything according to their whim, and by they I mean the BJP, the reigning government. I'm not even talking about the BJP, whoever the
No, no,
government
it's
is.
just the government
uh,
only now. I personally, like, even over the years, I feel like it's not just like one government. It's just the government that is around, until unless you have the proper kind of leaders who think rationally. It can be just any government.
so I mean, I think the whole point is you can't control the internet. uh, you can't, because it's such a vast and vague landscape. What would you consider news? Is a meme considered news? Is a TikTok considered news? I mean, TikTok's not there anymore. Whatever, reel considered news? What exactly will you be regulating? Now it's very easy to say the big OTTs, like that's what is going to happen. Like, you're not going to get another Mirzapur or Sacred Games, or
Exactly. Yeah.
stuff like that's never, it's not going to happen. You're going to see more Karan Johar films, and you're going to see more Akshay Kumar just doing random Netflix specials, which is the defeatist. I mean, it's defeating the purpose of why these OTTs came to India. It's because we lacked, a ton of great Indian, like what Indian content could be. Right, Indian content should not be based on the Salman Khan films you see in Bollywood. It should be based on, say, Scam 1992. I think
Right.
that is good. It's not only good Indian content; it's great content. It's a great show in general. I would have watched it irrespective of the language and the actors and who they are.
Right.
Um, so I think once these regulations come into place, of course the OTTs will suffer. Of course, Netflix, Hotstar, Prime, and stuff like that. What I'm more concerned about, I mean, I'm concerned about that also, because like censorship in general is like messed up in this
Yes.
country. But I'm also more concerned about what happens to the individual creators, what happens to the YouTubers and the Instagrammers, and people who have been making content. Say for instance, what happens to Faye's show? Does she fall under news because she's doing it on YouTube? So does that fall under the regulatory committee? uh, does that and my theory is that there are already so many pro government channels and pro government publications, which I feel will not be touched by this. And there's going to be another he said, she said. How can this be allowed? How can that be allowed? How can this be? And it's just going to be another mess of whatever. I just think they're doing this so that they can control more of this. Seems like a very China North Korea thing, which is they control what the media and what you can see on television.
Right.
um, which is, and everyone should be worried about this. This isn't something that will affect only the people from my industry. It'll affect you as a viewer, as a reader, because you're not going to get the stuff that you used to see, maybe in 2 years, maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years. Again, they're being very vague
Right.
about what exactly the regulations are going to be. We'll just have to wait and see. uh,
And already
and
there's so much
that,
going on with the kind of content that's been produced online, and people already have so many views about it. With why they're showing so much violence in the show, why there are so many sex scenes in the show, and now it's further gonna be cut into pieces and be fed to the viewers, the users, that okay, there is no violence in our country, there's no corruption, everything is just pretty smooth and everything is like a fairy tale. So that's what we're going to serve you, please have this. And on the other hand, and there is news channels and the reporting that's been happening, and I'm asking you because you are a journalist first. You started as a journalist, and right
yeah.
now the current condition of the country that we are in, with the news media houses being okay, they are targeted. Also, there are some news media houses which are just out of scope only, which we don't even know what to do about them. But again, they are earning the top TRPs in our country because we are consuming that content. How do you think this divide is gonna stop? Because for my personal view, I think until unless the Indian audience stop watching this kind of content, it's not gonna. They're not gonna stop.
Censoring violence and censoring sexually explicit scenes and stuff like that, one ideally should not happen in your own home, because you're not going to a theater to watch it. You're paying for the subscription and you're sitting at home and kind of consuming that content. So it should definitely not happen, because that is the definition of censorship. But I'm more concerned about, say, Hotstar not showing the John Oliver episode about Modi, or I believe there was some show on Prime or something, Madam Secretary or something like that, where there was a plot involving Hindu nationalists, which was not shown. That episode was not shown in India. So I'm more concerned about those things, because the, that is propaganda. That is trying to showcase exactly what you said, which is Indian society is this and it's not that, and that is my problem. I also feel uh, I don't know how to. Content will be consumed whoever you are, and it will always be from your spectrum, right? If you are more left leaning, you will consume more left leaning content. If you're more right leaning, you will consume more right leaning content. And the divide that's created in India is basically because of people like Arnab, uh, who's he has such a large voice in the country. uh, the Supreme Court verdict just came out where they were like,
Yes.
if you don't
Yeah.
like this
Don't
channel,
watch
just
it.
don't watch it and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm smart enough not to watch it, but my grandparents or my neighbors
Yeah.
will watch it, because Arnab didn't start off as a right-leaning journalist. He was actually a very composed and calm and quite a
Exactly.
centrist
Yes, that's true.
back when. Um, it's the character he's developed, right? And a lot of these, uh, see, I don't like this left versus right ideology and stuff like that. My theory is human rights comes first in general. But there's always a theory that the left is always fighting within that spectrum, right? Like you'll always find some issue or the other with something or the other someone does. Now, what I admire about the right wing is that they're very cohesive, that they don't fight amongst themselves. They know that their goal is this, and they do everything based on that. So when it comes to right wing publications and television and stuff like that, the cross promotion of themselves is very, very good. I think that left liberals will be our own downfall. At some point or the other, someone is going to call out everyone else, and someone was not inclusive enough, or someone didn't talk about one thing enough, and that's always going to be a problem. Um, I genuinely don't know the solution of how do you break down this divide between the country. My theory is you do every small bit that you as an individual can, which is um, you talk about an issue that you think is right to talk about, and you put it out there, and you know make sure that enough people are kind of understanding and listening to that issue. And earlier what I would do is I would always I was very active in the comments. If there was something I said that offended someone, or there was something I said that didn't make sense or something, like I always loved kind of discussing in DMs. I used to talk to a lot of people, and now I just don't. I don't talk in DMs. I barely look at the comments, because it's just filled with hate. It's just filled with
Right.
abuses, but that's what they want. They don't want you to engage with the audience, because there'll be a 15-year-old 16-year-old kid out there who doesn't understand what you're saying online, and wants to understand, will try to clarify, but he won't get a response, and it's unfortunate. But like, mental health sake, I can imagine a lot of people not wanting to look at their DMs or read the comments and stuff like
I
that.
think a
So
lot of misinformation also happens because it's not just about what's out there on social media. There's a lot of things happening at everyone's house. No one wants to go up to their parents or grandparents and ask about, what do you think about this particular piece of news? What are
yeah,
your political opinions? We don't have that kind of conversations happening in our household, and then we are going on social media and then we are fighting others.
I think that's the most important point. I think that all education and awareness, you can scream all you want on social media. Most of the time, you're screaming into your own bubble. But the biggest point, I think, is that you have to have conversations at home, with your parents, with your grandparents, with your friends, and that's the only way that the society will kind of um, you know de-brainwash themselves, I suppose, unlearn everything that they have about you know the structures that are in place in India, which is widespread patriarchy, widespread communalism, widespread caste-based violence. It's too ingrained in the society, to a point where I'm sure a lot of people don't even know they're doing it.
Right.
So conversations at home are, I would say, extremely important. I grew up in a very liberal family. We were very I suppose westernized. I was very shielded from a lot of things that happened in India. I learned a lot about it in in college, and at BuzzFeed, where I was exposed to a lot of things that I'm sure I noticed but didn't really think much about. Uh, and that's where the unlearning started. I started educating myself and unlearning a lot of things, specifically about my privilege, as a cis hetero man. As there was a lot
Yeah.
of things, there's a lot of unpackaging to do, but a lot of people might not have that. So if I was able to do it, what I tried to do since then was to just talk to my friends, and because they won't be exposed to the same environment that I was. So, but I can be that exposure for them. So I think that it's very important to, kind of talk to the people around you.
I think this is something I can relate to very personally because over the period of last 1 year, the kind of changes that I have seen with my learning process and the way I look at things has changed drastically. I've
Yeah,
tried to learn more about things and then go into a little more detail to understand why that thing happened. And now when I have those kind of conversations with my family and with my friends, I know that okay, I'm putting out some kind of impact on them, and they might go home and they might think about it. Okay, what she said. Let me just go ahead and do a little bit more research work on it, and then they'll talk to other 5 6 people. It's like a chain reaction which happens. But you need to get the
exactly,
right
exactly.
start. The right information is very important. You spoke
Yeah,
about your environment in BuzzFeed, and now also you are associated with the platforms like
yeah,
Dice Media and Filter Copy, which are extremely and widely popular among youth. So the kind of information
yeah,
that you seek from your
yeah,
personal life, it gets kind of incorporated in your work also. Like you generate ideas from what you see.
yeah, very much so. Yeah,
And
very much so. Um, sorry, I was just saying that life experiences always flow into, especially fiction and non-fiction, it doesn't matter. But when you're creating stuff for the internet, life experiences always flow in. What my life experiences have taught me is that I didn't have many life experiences that could widely relate to everyone else. So what I've been trying to do over the last few years is listen to other people, and kind of soak in more of an understanding of where they came from, why they behave the way they do, and what are the problems they face and stuff like that. Um, I think that now my theory about when you write something, whether it be for a filter copy or BuzzFeed or Dice or Nutshell, where I am right now, you you always have some of personal experience that you pour into your work, but a lot of it is lived experience, right? It's experiences of others. So I try to channel that a little more nowadays, um, because I came to the stark realization that I'm not the smartest person in the room, and that has been like one of the biggest learnings for me over the last 4 or 5 years. Um, so yeah, I mean, being exposed to these environments are really good because you meet a ton of people and you meet them from almost all walks of life, which gives you a really rich understanding of who they are and eventually who you are.
Also, it's very important to have that kind of a working space also where you can think freely and brainstorm on a lot of ideas and put everything on the table.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be any restrictions. Okay, ye nahi karna hai, ye nahi karna hai, ye nahi karna hai. Then already like 50% of your thinking power is drained out. You're like, okay, I don't have any more ideas because you have already taken 50% of my ideas.
So yeah, I mean, I think I've been very lucky to be in these environments. I think that I very much lucked out in my early years of my career. That so I used to work for DNA as well. So even there, very
Yes.
honestly, even though the company itself was, um, as with most Indian news organizations, the team that I was in was very supportive and very collaborative. So um, if there was something that wouldn't work for the platform or we shouldn't do or something like that, there was always a discussion about why, how we can make it better, um, which I realize is a very lucky thing in this industry and in general jobs, um, for people to be supportive and collaborative with what you're doing, because a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah.
So where it's straight rejection, like no reason why and stuff like that. You'll always hit ups and downs in most jobs. BuzzFeed also, as most people think, it wasn't the rosy, amazing place it was. Obviously, we had a lot of heated debates and heated arguments about like why something should go up, shouldn't go up, and there were wins and losses. But for the most part, it was a great experience. And so is Pocket Aces. It's the same thing. Just I think that I've been at places that afforded me a little more um, leeway and learning and understanding the whys and why nots.
I think it's also the perception that becomes, you see these kind of content on internet and you feel like amazing, what a great place to work in. All your ideas are approved and these people make such kick-ass content. इनकी तो कोई problem ही नहीं होती होगी. Like audience start having that kind of assumption that, okay, place like this, everything is possible and everyone's doing everything. They don't understand about the
Yeah.
kind of brainstorming that happens behind the camera and on the table, how the scripting has to be done, what kind of information you want to put out. So that perception starts developing in audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think for every in my experience, for every idea that gets approved that goes live, there were 10 that were rejected before that. Like, it's not. I know a lot of people think that you just wake up, you have an idea, you make the video, and then you put it out. That's really not how it goes.
Yeah.
If you talk to content creators, like, even ones just doing content creation on Instagram and stuff like that, uh, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of thinking. It's a lot of sleepless nights. It's a lot of hours of editing, even for a 30-40 second clip sometimes. And uh, it's not the rosy lifestyle that most. Of course there are perks. Of course you get a lot of followers, some people get a lot of money from it, some people get a lot of brand endorsements, opportunities in web series, whatever. Of course there are perks, but that's with most jobs, right? You struggle and you work hard and you do something really well, you will get some advantages down the line. um, but yeah, content creation itself is taxing, let's say.
Yes, very, very, absolutely. I agree on that part. Over the years now, because you have such a big, massive following on social media now, people know you, recognize you by face. Um, अभी तो lockdown हो गया है, so you said you're not stepping out that much. But have you felt that kind of stardom, fandom happening with you? People actually recognizing you on streets and saying, "Oh, you know, I really appreciate the kind of content you put out. You're doing a great work."
Yeah, I mean, I do get recognized fair, like a lot. I think that's more over to my days as, in front of the camera at BuzzFeed. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've seen a, steep increase in the number of people who recognize me and stuff like that. But also, I feel like it's Bombay, so I mean, you have Bollywood stars just roaming around. So I think that appeal for the famous person or whatever is a little. I mean, I'll tell you. I'll give you some experiences when I'm with friends who are way more famous than me. When I'm with Kusha, or when I'm with Srishti or Rohan Joshi or any of these people, um, you really understand what stardom is, because then the mobs that come for them is ridiculous. Like, I remember this one time Kusha and I were exiting some, I don't know, some festival she was speaking at, performing at, and we had to be escorted, like, through like a back way and like into the car immediately, because there were just mobs of fans just waiting for her outside. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think I don't think too much about it. I don't like the monikers of fame and influencer and like all of that jazz. Um, I would prefer. I'm lucky enough to be able to live a normal life. Like, I don't get mobbed at restaurants. I don't get mobbed at bars. There will be a few people who come up for a picture, or to say some appreciative words, um, or something like that. But it's never been that intense.
And but has that kind of indirectly or directly been different for your family also? Because as you said, you know, your father might call you up or just tell you that, you know, what you are doing, you just have to stop because it's getting too much, or your friends telling you that thing. So, but for the parents' angle, because they might not understand the kind of work you are doing right now, but they do have an idea. Okay, my son is being recognized. He's walking down the street and people are staring at him and talking about him. So that kind of thing has happened with the
Yeah,
family. They have been kind of directly
yeah.
affected with it.
I mean, my dad has, when we gone out for dinner or something like that, he's seen people come up to me and say hi and stuff like that. And a lot of his friends have told them, "Oh, I saw Andre's video and this and that." Um, in terms of telling me to stop or anything like that, it's never been the case, because like my family and friends have been all been very supportive. In fact, uh, my attention and my attraction to the news was because of my father. When I was growing up, we received almost every newspaper you could think of. So we would receive like some 5-6 newspapers in the morning and 5-6 newspapers in the afternoon. So I was constantly reading the news. We would watch Newsroom. That's why I'm telling you, I know what Arnab was, because I've been watching him for years. My
Yeah.
dad, in my house, the news was always playing, whether it's in the
Yeah,
background. There are a
even we used
lot of
to,
my followers on
right.
Instagram also point out.
Even I used to follow him at
Yeah,
the very that initial time when I really respected him as a journalist. You know, I really thought that okay, maybe there's someone who's
yeah,
making a different kind of noise and who's putting out very important points out there. Then another phase started altogether, and then you see the shift in the personality, and you believe that okay, a person can change for bad also. But yeah, that's a very
yeah,
national issue now. I don't know who can change
yeah,
him or
pretty
what can
much.
change him. Yeah. What kind of content is there that you like to consume now? I mean, because I like in general, if we talk about you are into content creation, what kind of content you usually consume? Entertainment
Uh,
content, especially.
yeah, I mean, personally, I watch practically everything. I'm a huge cinephile, so I have hard drives and hard drives of television shows. I have accounts on Netflix, Prime, Hotstar, Sony Live, like everything basically. And I like consuming what I've been recently. I mean, I'm also a big comic book fan. So I read a lot of comic books. So I watch a lot of comic book videos also, which a lot of people find strange. There'll be like a 2-hour video talking about some Marvel event that happened in the comic books in the 1990s, and I'll sit and watch that 2-hour video. So yeah, there are 2-3 types of content brackets, I suppose. I watch. I love John Oliver and Trevor Noah and stuff like that. I love news comedy because well, that's something I eventually want to get into, and I think that I think I get more of my information about world news from these guys than I get from like watching,
You
I don't
think
know,
we'll
like
be able
CNN
to
or something
get
like that.
that kind of comedy in India anytime soon?
I mean, we already kind of had it. Like AIB did On Air with
Yeah,
AIB, which was
yeah.
very similar to that style of John Oliver, I suppose. I don't think India will ever be
He's
able
ready
to.
for it
I
also.
think
Yes.
you'll get sued left and right.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think that those that's basically what I consume. I do like social commentary videos on YouTube, so I like watching Drew Gordon and D'Angelo and Cosmonaut Variety, stuff like that on YouTube. That's yeah.
I think it has been a very interesting conversation. I never thought that this will turn out into be so informative interaction, and I was really excited for this recording today because I spoke to a lot of my friends who follow you because I really wanted to know their opinion and what they wanted to ask. A lot of my questions for today.
Okay.
From them also, and it was like a kind of a combined effort from a lot of people because there are a lot of people out there who
Yeah.
want to know your
Like
side of
collate it.
story. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I would like to
Yeah.
thank you from on behalf of all of them. Thank you on behalf of me and Stories You Should Know for taking out time and saying
Yeah.
yes. I hope we continue seeing you speaking up on such important and relevant topics. We need voices like yours. So please do it. Keep doing that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. This was a really delightful talk.